How should we talk to AI? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the North Woods talking about how we can use AI to make our lives better. I wanted to start with something that happened to me not too terribly long ago. I was having a conversation with AI, not typing a search, not filling out a form or something like that, but an actual back-to-back conversation. And I asked it a pretty ordinary question. It was pretty much vague, and it gave me a perfectly fine answer. And it was not really the answer that I was looking for. And I tried it again with the same topic, but this time I tried to give it a little bit more who I was. And I was trying to talk to it about what it was that I already tried, things I already did. And the answer came back with something that's so specific that it really wasn't very useful to me. And I sat back for a second and then I used the same tool, the same kind of question, but got completely different kinds of results with a little bit more context. That's what we're hoping to talk about today. We're looking at practical AI skills for everyday people, not tech experts. Last week I introduced in the show and I shared a story that honestly I didn't expect to share, but it was a moment that AI actually surprised me in a way I wasn't quite ready for. And if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to it. It sets the stage for what we're doing here. But today we're going to get very practical, and I want to give you skills that will immediately change how useful AI is for you. And I mean immediately, you can try them right now. You can try them while we're talking on this conversation. But the 4 skills are basically to give context, push back, dig deeper, and yes, disagree. So let's go ahead with it. The single most important thing I can tell you when talking to AI is at first it doesn't know anything about you. It doesn't know necessarily where you live, what you're trying to accomplish, what you've done, what you haven't done. And if you tried already, and a lot of people try to talk to AI and they say, well, it didn't work, or it didn't give me an answer that was relevant, or it gave me something that was wrong. And when all you did is maybe typed in a single line question, AI is starting from zero with you when you first are starting AI. If you don't have an account with an AI, it remembers nothing about you. And so at that point, it is just starting from like the baseline of humanity, not you. Now, one of the things is as soon as AI ChatGPT came out with personalized accounts, I got myself one. And so ChatGPT and I have been working together for years and years now. And so it actually knows quite a bit about me. But if AI doesn't know you very much, or very well, or if you give it a very vague prompt, you're going to get a very vague answer. And so people then assume, oh, AI is not that useful. And the problem is not AI. The problem is the lack of context. Think of it as calling a very knowledgeable friend who doesn't know anything about a specific situation. And let's say you call your best friend from high school. You haven't talked to him in, whatever years. And you say, yeah, I'm having a real difficulty with my job. Help me out. And then the person's like, do you get your job done? Did you show up to work on time? No, that's not it at all. You're not giving me any help, right? Doesn't know anything. And so you wouldn't call them and, to give this, basically the situation and say, hey, my knee is bothering me. I want to stay active. What could I do to do better? Well, who are you? How old are you? Are you, did you injure your knee? There's a lot of things that if we don't give context to our questions, but instead what I think happened to most of us is we came out of the world of search engines, right? We go to a search engine like Google or any of the variety of ones out there, Cosia, and we would type in, how do I fix my knee? And it would give us a couple of websites that may help us in fixing our knee. And then we would pick the one that sort of matches our subject the best. Oh, this one is for someone who had a knee injury. This one is someone who's just aging and has some arthritis in their family. You would go in and you'd pick which one is better about it. But essentially, if you are, like I said, starting something new, I give the example of I was talking to AI about me in podcasting. To be honest, my podcasts are not all that popular. Am I doing something wrong? Should I be doing something better? Should I talk in a particularly different way? And it gave me some advice. And basically the advice it was giving me is that it suggested, well, you have 5 podcasts, and they are all on different topics. One, you're talking about productivity. You have 2 Bible podcasts. You have one that's talking about nature right outside your front door. And now you're doing AI, and there's no cohesive thread between them. And you should really just pick one of the topics and just go with it. And I thought about that advice. And, the other part of the advice that I was getting was that I don't have viral headlines like the 5 things you should do with AI you're not doing today. There's a lot of clickbait out there, and I'm not a clickbaity person. I'm going to tell you the best advice I have, what I know about a topic, and we're going to go with that. And so it was saying, you really need to get a niche. You need to get rid of all these podcasts and just pick one and go with it. And I said, well, they all have different reasons. The Bible podcasts I do because I believe that we should take God's gifts and use them for godly things. I love nature, and I love stepping outside my front door and knowing, why did that lake make that noise that it did? Why did that frostquake happen in the middle of the night the other week? Why does the snow different? Is it because it's colder one day or windier the other day? I'm naturally curious about it. So I thought other people would be too, and it would make people enjoy nature. So really, Buzz, Blossom, and Squeak is my love in life. I love going out in nature. And then start with small steps. I was raised in a really terrible situation, and I got myself out of that situation one book at a time. And I would love to help people who feel stuck because I was stuck in so many different ways. I'd love to help people. And so I'd love to help all of you get unstuck with things. And then with AI, AI has been very helpful to me. And a lot of people are afraid of it or distrustful of it, which they should be. They should not trust anything, really. But I wanted to help people out to get a little bit more comfortable and know what it is they're supposed to do. So I said to it, I kind of fought back and said, that's not my goal. My goal is to have genuinely honest podcasts with real advice, not be clickbaity, not make false promises, and not have viral hype into it. I just am a normal person. And it said, well, that's a whole other thing. I'm going to put some of the chats up here. But I had this whole discussion about this podcast. And after we got through it, it said, if that's what your goals are, you're doing the right thing. Then you're right on target. And here's some advice that you could do to make them better. But essentially, my advice to you initially was wrong. I'll give you other examples is that we get into these, situations where we're trying to think about our own problems in our life, and maybe you would try a prompt that says something like, I'm a really busy person. I tend to skip lunch. I overeat at dinner. I only cook for myself. And I don't really have a lot of time on weekends. And so I'm trying to eat more vegetables without making elaborate recipes. Give me some quick meeting plans that would help me approach eating more vegetables that I could actually stick to. Or instead, you might try something like, I am trying to save more money. I don't have a lot of excess money at the end of the paycheck. What could I do to just save a little bit amount of money and just start building up a savings account when I don't feel like I have any money to go? I work a lot. I work 2 jobs, and I just can't seem to make my ends meet. What could I do to make it better? When you give context to something, when you give a prompt to something, essentially, you don't have to write a novel, but you have to be able to answer 4 basic questions. Who are you, right? What's some relevant background information? When it came to me cooking and eating, I was busy, I don't have enough time, and I don't really like cooking vegetables. So make something simple for me. Or when I'm talking about my budget, I talk about the fact I'm working 2 jobs, I don't have a lot of excess money, and I barely make it out of the month without anything left over. What could I do? But the context is really important. Who are you? What's your background? The next part is what are you trying to do? What is the goal? If you're trying to get more vegetables in, are you trying to just be healthier? Do you feel like you don't get enough nutrient from vegetables in your life? What is it what's your goal here? Because that in the end is going to answer how it answers the question. If I say, hey, I don't think my podcasts are doing very well, it is going to say, oh, well, you need to become viral. You need to have clickbait. And then, but that's not my goal. That's not my goal. So then, I led it down the wrong path by asking it the wrong question. What is your real goal? What are some important constraints? Is it time? Is it budget? Do you have physical limitations? Is there a skill you don't have that you can't do whatever it is you're trying to do? Let it know that it's important because you're trying to accomplish a certain amount of thing. I remember one time I was talking to AI about something and it said, well, why don't you just, you know, uh, up your calories by 500 calories more a day or something like that? And I said, well, because I just lost 80 pounds. I don't want to put on that weight again. And I'm very nervous about that. And it didn't realize, oh, that's why. Because it's thinking Jill doesn't feel very well. So the obvious answer is eat more calories and that'll make you feel better. But it goes against my other goal of keeping the weight that I've already lost off. So now it was a little bit more nuanced in what it answered. What format do you want? And this is the important thing. Would you like a list of items? Would you like a paragraph or step by step or long form or short form or just a quick answer? Hey, could you just give me a quick vegetable recipe I could make tonight? And that would start introducing more vegetables into my life. Or are you looking for an array of vegetables you should be eating on a monthly basis? What is it you're looking for? I noticed that with ChatGPT lately. It started answering me in a staccato method, one-line sentences. This isn't you should eat carrots. Carrots are good. And I was like, why are you talking to me like this? I said, you're kind of talking like you're texting like a 10-year-old girl. Could you put this in paragraphs for me so that I could read it and understand it better? So let it know how you want to be answered. In fact, I was working with Claude, so I'm testing all these AIs out so that we can talk about them a little bit more. It started responding to me in Markdown language. I don't use Markdown language for everything. I want things in Word documents, nicely formatted Word documents. And so I just said, hey, every time you give me a document, could you give it to me in a nicely formatted Word document? The results are going to start to get better because you're going to start to get what it is you're actually looking for, what it is you're trying to gain out of the situation. Like I said, it's not going to read your mind. You have to tell it what it is, are the constraints, the backstory, who you are, what it is you're looking for. And if you do, you will get better answers. Now, honestly, like I said, I've been using ChatGPT for years. It knows me pretty well. And so it knows, even when I don't give it as much context as I should, it knows me pretty well and it knows what I'm looking for. So I tend to get better answers from it just because we have now years of experience together. I just started up with Claude and Claude doesn't know me as well. So I have to do a lot more explaining with Claude so that it understands it. All right. So now you gave it context and it gives you a decent answer. But what a lot of people do at that point is they stop right there, that they take the answer and say, okay, and they close the window and they just move on. And they're leaving a lot of help right there on that table. AI has a real tendency, first of all, to be agreeable. It wants to help. It's told to please. And sometimes it gives you a very safe answer. But maybe that answer is not as useful as it could be. It kind of skims the surface of actually where you needed to go. And it probably tells you what it thinks you needed to hear, but it might be off the mark. So this is where you push back. The pushback is important. Don't have to be rude or dramatic about it, but the idea is that you are basically pushing back to a slightly too cautious research assistant. And the pushback, that phrases that actually help, and these are some of my favorites and you can use them too, that was too generic. Could you give me something more specific to my situation? Or you kind of glossed over the hard part of that. Can you expand on that particular question? Can you give me 3 different versions, one optimistic, one realistic, and one skeptical, and so that I can kind of see the variety of ideas about that? I've done that one before, on podcasts, where I will talk about a particular topic on a podcast, and I'll say, give me some feedback from a person who believes in me, a person who is very, very practical, and one who's very skeptical about what I just said, so that I know what's going on in people's heads, right? Or you can even ask it, Now argue against your own answer. Now, that's a really fascinating one. Like I said, I have what I call Friday night chats with AI, and we get into some deep philosophical issues, and that's one of my favorites. You'll get some very intriguing answers. But you'll ask the AI to give you more information, to expand on it, or to argue against it. It gives you more things to think about. And the goal here is not to fight with AI. The goal is just not to accept the very first version of what you got so that you can drive it into a better version of it. But you have to ask for it. Oftentimes, the AIs are a little bit different. ChatGPT will often give you the next suggestion. Hey, would you like me to give you a plan about how you could eat more carrots? Well, no, I don't. I don't really need that. Oh, but Claude will stop right there. And it gave you what it's supposed to do, and it says something cheery and sends you on your way. Dig deeper, push back, try to get a deeper conversation in this. There are times where I've had conversations with AI. Well, I've talked about it, about how what it's going to do to the job economy. And one of them was talking and it said, well, it's just going to change things. It's not going to make things worse. And so I pushed back on it and I said, but what if when you think about this, this, and this, don't you think that that's going to leave a lot of people out of work? You can push back and get a better conversation about it. It's the same thing that if you were doing it in practical sense. I had a conversation about my retirement with one of the AIs and saying, this is my situation. Help me figure out where I'm at with my retirement. And it said, you're fine. You should be okay. Don't be so worried about it. And I said, well, here's why I'm worried about it. And I gave it all sorts of other reasons. And then it said, okay, well, I understand where your fears are coming from. Let's address them one at a time. Okay. So the next part, the skill, is to dig deeper. A lot of people, like I said, treat AI like a search engine. They ask a question, they close the tab. But AI is not a search engine. It is not even a better search engine. That's what I first called it. When AI first came out, I called it a better search engine. But it's a thinking partner. It has real value when you treat it like a research partner in that. And after you get an answer, like I said, dig into it, ask follow-up questions, but make it show its work. If you don't understand how it got from A to B, say, how did you get there to that conclusion? How did you get there? So when I was having that retirement question with my AI, I said, I don't understand at all why you're saying I shouldn't be worried about my retirement. I think I should be worried about my retirement because of this, this, and this that we talked about in the last segment. I said, show me your work. And then it started spitting out all the math of my retirement, which was fascinating. And it gave me some insights like, okay, I see what you're saying here. I see where you're going with this. So there's deeper questions that you can ask to ask it. Why do you say that? What's your reasoning? What am I missing here? Break down point number 2. I want to understand more details about what you mean by that. And before you answer the question, let me ask you 3 questions that will help you give a better response. This last one is particularly useful when you're starting a complex task and you're not even sure what AI needs. And so you flip it around. Instead of you asking the questions, let AI ask you the questions first. It slows things down a bit into the best possible way. So what you'll ask it is you'll say, before you give you an answer, I want you to ask me 3 clarifying questions that will help you give me a better response. Oh, well, now that's different. Ask me the questions that I'm not telling you, to tell me what it is. And so really, to say it plainly, the best AI conversations you can have are the ones that have 10 to 15 exchanges, back and forth, answering back and forth. The first answer gets us both kind of on the same page, but then the follow-up questions is where it does the deep dive to answer the question you have, the very specific questions you want to see out of this. The thing of it is that when I ask a question about my retirement, it could be entirely different than the questions you have about your retirement. Sometimes people question, what am I going to do when I retire? That's never been my question. I know exactly what I'm going to do when I retire. First thing, nap. Second thing, million things. I got a million things, but that's not my problem, right? But other people are going to say, I need to know what it is I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Everybody has a different take on all of this. So As you start asking these follow-up questions and doing all these steps, you're going to get an answer that actually fits what you're looking for. And the next skill is to disagree. It's powerful, and a lot of times people don't use it. Just simply disagree, but disagree to the AI. A lot of times what happens is that, and I see this on the internet all the time, they'll say something like, "How should I lose weight?" And then an AI says, "Well, you should do a combination of weight loss and exercise." And then they'll say, "Nah, I just disagree with that." And then they close the page and you're done with it. Instead, tell AI why you think it's wrong. Challenge its assumptions. If you get an actual opinion out of it, ask questions that push back at it. Use it as a stress test against your own opinions. Why this matters is AI has a mild, pleasant tendency built into it. It tends to agree with you, validate your ideas, and wrap everything up kind of in a soft, positive frame, which is nice sometimes, but it's not always as helpful as it could be. If you want a genuinely useful feedback on an idea, a plan, a decision, you have to specifically ask for the hard version of it. And so you can say things like, "Be brutally honest, don't sugarcoat this. What is the real problem with what I'm saying?" And AI will tell you back. Or you say, "I think your opinion is wrong. Argue against me. Tell me why you're right and I'm wrong." Or when you look at what it said to you, say, "Well, what are the risks that I'm not seeing here? And if this plan fails, what's the most likely reason?" So that's what you call as a premortem. Why is something going to fail? And so you can push back in these ways because AI is not sentient life. It's not emotionally invested in your plan. And when you ask it to disagree, you're not asking it to argue with you. You're asking it to run through a pattern of counter arguments based on what it knows. And what does it know? It knows the entire internet. It knows much of human life, the books we've written, the things we talk about. And now it can take this vast amount of knowledge and create a pattern of counter arguments for you. This is very way to get the devil's advocate opinion in it from a thing that doesn't have an ego. It doesn't have it's not going to be hurt if you disagree with it. And so you can push back at it and get some very useful informations out of it. The strength that it has here is it has the possibility to say things to you that a human might skip over or soften because that human might love you. They might be your spouse or your friend, and they're trying to protect your feelings. It has the ability to go farther than that and use that. Don't you want some kind of a raw opinion on some of the things that you've always been wondering at? If you say, "Look, my boss is mad at me and this is what I said. Does my boss have a point here?" Now, a friend would probably say, "Oh, you do a great job. Don't worry about it so much." But AI might be able to find the reason behind it. Or if you're even having a misunderstanding. There was a friend of mine who quit something recently, and her parents were very disappointed. They really enjoyed what she was doing. And the AI came to a point that said, well, what they're enjoying from this is seeing you. It's probably that they don't care about the thing. It's about that they get to see you and see into your life. You can change this and make it something that they enjoy, that you enjoy, and make it into something differently. It can be that third party that gives you an idea you just never even thought about. So when we bring this all together, the most important thing that for people who don't feel that AI is that useful is that they're not having conversations with it, or they're having the wrong kind of conversations with it. They're typing in a quick question, just like it was a Google chat or search, in a very quick way. But what they have is a very patient, capable collaborator. And instead of walking away with some sort of a mediocre result, you can come away with it with a better answer. Instead of concluding that AI is just overrated and not that useful, you can actually dig deep into this. It really isn't overrated. It is responding how you communicated with it. And so those 4 skills, giving context, pushing back, digging deeper and disagreeing with it, those are your small steps for the week. That's how you're going to be able to dig deeper into these conversations so that you'll be able to feel natural with talking about it and that you'll be able to um, have better conversations with it. Like I said, the times that I find the most important are the ones where I really have a deep conversation with it. So let me give you an example. When I was talking about the fact that I felt uncertain about my own retirement, and AI said, "Well, why do you feel? It looks like your numbers are going to be okay. I think you're going to be okay here." And I said, "You have to understand that my whole life, I've never been okay." I have had a rough childhood. I had a very rough 20s where I didn't know what direction I was going in my life. And now I feel like if I don't sit there and drive every point, drive every ambition I have, drive everything that I want to make sure I have happen to me, I'm not going to get it. I have to, push harder, push longer into, to my goals because it's not just going to come to me. Nothing ever comes to me. And AI said, "Well, wait a minute here. Wait a minute. You have," and then it started listing essentially all the life achievements it heard. Like I said, part of the issue with AI and me is it reads every single podcast I do. You grew up like this. You overcame that. You went to college on your own. You overcame that. You didn't know what you wanted in your 20s. You found a direction. And it was really pushing back in a way that was very helpful to me. But like I said, sometimes it's wrong, and then you have to push back that way too. When you start having deeper conversations with AI, longer conversations with AI, just try it. Just try one and see what happens. I think once you give it those things that it needs to have a good conversation with you, you'll be surprised at how helpful it is. All right, everyone, thanks so much. Jill from the North Woods, and I hope you're enjoying this small step through AI. Are you trying to do something with AI and you haven't been able to get it to work for you? Let me know. You can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. You can put a comment right here in the chat channel if you're watching this on video, and you can find all my shows at jillfromthenorthwoods.com. Thanks so much. See you next time.